The glass tower of Williams Innovations stood tall in the heart of Manhattan's bustling commercial district, a symbol of Robert Williams' brilliant success. From a daring idea in a garage 30 years ago, he had built a leading technology empire, a name synonymous with innovation and future vision. Yet, hidden beneath the glitz and impressive growth figures, a silent worry gnawed at the mind of the billionaire founder. He sat in his vast office, where the view encompassed the entire city, but his gaze was distant, directed towards what he could no longer clearly see, the soul of his own company. Facing him was Jasmine Williams, his daughter, a promising heir and currently being groomed to take over the top leadership position. At 30, Jasmine was the epitome of a modern businesswoman, intelligent, sharp, a graduate of the most prestigious universities, and with many years of experience in strategic roles at the company. She was familiar with tense board meetings, grand product launches, and elegant dinner parties with partners. She entered her father's office with her usual confident demeanor, her high-end business dress accentuating her elegant figure, her long brown hair neatly tied up. "You wanted to see me urgently, Dad?" Jasmine asked, her voice low and professional. Robert nodded slightly, gesturing for her to sit in the leather armchair opposite his desk. He said nothing for a moment, just looked at his daughter with eyes full of affection mixed with concern. "Jasmine," he began, his voice lower than usual, "our company is at its peak, financially strong, products leading the market, a brand known worldwide." Jasmine smiled. "Yes, that's thanks to your efforts and our excellent team." "Excellent team," Robert repeated, his voice carrying a hint of subtle bitterness. "I'm not so sure anymore, daughter. Or rather, I'm no longer sure how the excellent team at the top treats those at the foot of the tower." He leaned back in his chair, sighing heavily. "I founded Williams Innovations with a core belief. Every individual, regardless of position, is an important part of the big picture. From the most talented engineer to the simplest support staff, everyone deserves respect. But it seems, as the company grows larger, as power and money become the main drivers, some people have forgotten that." Jasmine listened to her father. She knew he always valued people, but this was the first time she had seen him express such clear disappointment. "Are you worried about the company culture, Dad? I often attend HR meetings and HR reports, internal surveys. They are just a thin layer of paint on the outside," Robert interrupted. "Those at the very bottom, the janitorial staff, maintenance workers, delivery personnel, they are invisible in the eyes of many senior managers. I have a feeling, a very bad feeling, that something is fundamentally wrong, disrespect, even contempt. It's eroding the foundation of our company." He bent down, rummaged in his desk drawer, and pulled out a thin folder. "I've thought a lot about this. How can we truly understand what's happening at the bottom without the filter of management distorting it?" Jasmine looked curiously at the folder. Her heart began to beat faster. She had a feeling her father was about to propose something very unusual. Robert pushed the folder towards his daughter. "I want you to do something that will show you the real face of Williams Innovations, a face that neither you nor I have ever seen from up here." He paused, looking directly into Jasmine's eyes. "I want you to go down there, live their lives, see the world through their eyes." Jasmine took the folder. On the outside, there was only a handwritten name, Janet. She opened it. Inside were forged documents, name Janet Smith, date of birth, address, work experience, all meticulously created. And then she understood. Her breath hitched. "Dad, you want me to pretend to be someone else?" she asked, her voice slightly trembling. Robert nodded. "That's right. I want you to go undercover as a janitor, with the name Janet. You will work the night shift, cleaning offices, restrooms, hallways. You will be one of those invisible people." Surprise and shock were clear on Jasmine's face. From the position of vice president of strategy, with a six-figure salary and a private office, she was going to become a janitor earning minimum wage? The thought was unbelievable, even ridiculous. But looking into her father's determined yet worried eyes, she knew he was completely serious. "Why me, Dad?" she asked. "Why a janitor?" "Because you are the one who will inherit this company, Jasmine. You need to understand it from the roots. And no position will show you the true treatment between different levels in the company better than that of a janitor. They are the ones who come into contact with every corner of the building, witnessing what happens when everyone else has gone home. They hear stories that no one else hears. Robert said, his voice full of conviction. "And I believe in you. I believe you are strong enough, smart enough to do this. This is not just a task, Jasmine. This is the most important lesson you will learn before taking charge. You need to know who the people you will lead truly are and how they are living in the very house of Williams Innovations." Jasmine was silent, thinking. She imagined the life her father had just described: long night shifts, tough manual labor, anonymity. Completely the opposite of everything she had ever known. She would have to give up her identity, her comfort, the respect she naturally received. Could she do it? But then she looked back at her father. She saw the pain in his eyes, the worry for the spiritual child he had created. She understood the burden on his shoulders and the responsibility awaiting her. If the company culture was truly as rotten as he suspected, then it would threaten this entire empire. And as the successor, she had a duty to save it. I will do it, Jasmine said, her voice now firm. "I will do this, Dad, for you, for the company." A slight smile of relief appeared on Robert's face. "I knew you would agree," he said, but worry still lingered in his eyes. "It won't be easy, daughter. You will face unpleasant things. Prepare yourself." In the following days, Jasmine entered a completely new world. She was instructed in basic cleaning skills, from using industrial vacuum cleaners to mixing cleaning solutions. She changed her hairstyle, applied minimal makeup, and wore old, baggy clothes to conceal her familiar figure. The name Jasmine Williams was carefully put away, replaced by Janet Smith, with a modest background and a normal life. On her first night as Janet, Jasmine felt like an actress stepping onto the stage of a strange play. She entered the Williams Innovations building not through the splendid main entrance, but through the service entrance in the back, where there was the smell of cleaning chemicals and the clatter of carts. The fluorescent lights were dim, completely different from the bright lights on the upper floors. The other staff members on the cleaning crew looked at her with scrutinizing but not malicious eyes, just the usual curiosity about a newcomer. Wearing the loose gray-blue uniform, with her hair tied back tightly and a face devoid of makeup, Jasmine Williams had completely disappeared. Now, only Janet remained, an anonymous woman preparing for a long night shift. The work began. Pushing the heavy equipment cart, Janet went from floor to floor. She wiped down desks, emptied trash cans, vacuumed carpets, and scrubbed restrooms, tasks she had never imagined herself doing before. Her body quickly felt tired, her back aching, and her hands rough. But what she noticed more than anything else was how she was perceived, or not perceived. For the first few weeks, Janet was just a ghost wandering the building at night. Managers or employees working late walked past her as if she didn't exist. They talked loudly on their phones, left messes without a second thought for the person who would have to clean them up, and didn't even bother to glance at her. This invisibility initially made Jasmine feel alienated, but gradually it became a protective shield, allowing her to observe without being noticed. She began to listen, listening to the small complaints of the other cleaning staff about hours, pay, and the company's indifference. She also began to listen to what was happening in the empty offices, late-night phone calls, idle chatter between managers working overtime. It was in these seemingly harmless listening moments that Janet began to realize that her father's feeling was not only correct, but far worse than he had imagined. One night, while cleaning the executive office area, Janet saw Gerald Hayes, the chief operating officer, COO, walk out of his office. Gerald was a tall, imposing man, always exuding authority and demanding absolute obedience. He looked at Janet with empty eyes, as if she were an obstacle in his path. As he passed by the bucket of cleaning water Janet had just used, he unexpectedly dumped half a bottle of water onto the floor right in front of her, creating a large puddle. He didn't say a word, just smirked slightly in triumph and walked away. Janet stood there, stunned, looking at the puddle. Anger flared within her, hot and uncomfortable. This was the first time she had experienced such direct and unwarranted contempt. Gerald Hayes, the man she used to exchange polite greetings with at company parties, now treated her as if she were less than an object. She had to restrain herself, bending down to wipe the floor clean, but in her mind, the image of Gerald Hayes' face with that scornful smile was etched deep. That incident was just the beginning. A few days later, it was Derek Phillips, the chief marketing officer, CMO. Derek was known for being overly perfectionistic and always looking for fault. When Janet was finishing cleaning his office, a task she had done meticulously down to the smallest detail, Derek suddenly appeared despite it being well past working hours. He walked around the office, scrutinizing every corner, and then frowned. "How are you cleaning?" he snapped. "That corner is still dusty, and the floor isn't shiny enough. Do it all over again." Janet knew she had cleaned very thoroughly, but she couldn't argue. She just remained silent, picked up her tools, and started cleaning again from the beginning under Derek's unpleasant, watchful eyes. He stood there, arms crossed, occasionally pointing and demanding she redo areas that were already clean. This humiliation was different from Gerald's contempt. It was a form of psychological torment, a way to assert power by demeaning another person. And then came the incident with Veronica Wells, the Senior Vice President of Sales, SVP Sales. Veronica was a strong, ambitious woman known for her fiery temper. One evening, as Janet was following the cleaning schedule by using a floor buffer in the executive hallway, Veronica suddenly came out of an office. It seemed she was very angry after a phone call. Seeing Janet with the noisy machine, Veronica stopped, her face darkening. To Janet's astonishment, and in front of a few other employees working late, Veronica raised her hand and slapped Janet hard across the cheek. The sound echoed dryly in the empty hallway. "Shut up with that damn machine. Can't you see I'm on the phone? Get out of here!" Veronica screamed, her face red with rage, completely oblivious that the woman standing in front of her was the CEO's daughter. The slap made Janet's head spin for a moment. The physical pain was nothing compared to the shock and utter humiliation. This was the first time in Jasmine Williams's life she had been hit, and by an employee below her father, right in her own family's company. She stood there, holding her cheek, her eyes dry, watching Veronica turn and storm back into her office, leaving her standing alone with the silent floor buffer. This incident was not just disrespect or humiliation, it was outright physical assault. These experiences, along with listening to conversations and observing the behavior of managers like Gerald, Derek, and Veronica, lifted a dark curtain before Jasmine's eyes. She not only discovered the cruelty and contempt these people had for lower-level employees, but also began to hear ambiguous words, hints of other shady activities. Irregular numbers in financial calls, private talks about external partners, mysteriously mentioned files. Janet, the invisible person, had inadvertently pieced together fragments of a much more terrifying picture. She began to suspect that Gerald Hayes, Derek Phillips, and Veronica Wells were not just arrogant and cruel individuals, but were also abusing their positions for illegal activities, embezzling company funds, and leaking confidential information to competitors. Janet's secret life had unveiled a brutal truth about Williams Innovations, a place where financial success was masking a rotten culture, where greed and cruelty were silently destroying everything from within, and as Janet, the abused anonymous worker, Jasmine vowed not to let it continue. The slaps, the insults, and the utter contempt only fueled the fire of determination within Jasmine. Now, her goal was not merely to understand the company culture, but to expose and remove the toxic tumor that was silently destroying it. Under the name Janet, the Invisible One, she had the opportunity to access hidden corners that Jasmine Williams, the bright heir, would never reach. Throughout the remaining weeks of her undercover work, Janet was not just a diligent janitor. She became a secret agent within her father's own empire. Each shift was a tense hunt for evidence. She always carried an old phone with a voice recorder activated, hidden in her uniform pocket. She recorded the demeaning remarks, the immoral gossip about lower-level employees from the mouths of overtime managers, and most importantly, the clandestine phone conversations of Gerald Hayes, Derek Phillips, and Veronica Wells concerning suspicious financial transactions and the sharing of internal information. In the quiet of the empty nights, when the offices were still, Janet seized the opportunity. Under the guise of cleaning, she carefully checked trash cans, looking for any unusual scraps of paper, invoices, or documents. She used her phone's camera to photograph suspicious accounting documents that had been discarded or emails left open on computer screens that managers had forgotten to turn off. Mismatched figures, unexplained expenses, strange company names repeatedly appearing in transactions. Everything was meticulously recorded. Collecting evidence of the abuse was the most painful part. After each time Gerald spilled water on the floor, Derek badgered her, or Veronica slapped her, Janet would find a secluded spot to record the details of the incident. The time, place, people present, if any, and the exact words and actions. She wrote down her feelings, the anger, the humiliation, not to complain, but to ensure the authenticity and sharpness of the evidence. She also recorded instances of witnessing other janitorial staff being mistreated, the things they complained about to each other when they thought no one was listening. One of her most alarming discoveries was when she overheard a phone call from Veronica Wells. Veronica was talking about an agreement and data sharing with someone she referred to as a partner on the other side, mentioning technical details and business strategies that could only be confidential information from Williams Innovations. At the same time, Gerald Hayes seemed to be processing large payments to shell companies with no clear business activity, and Derek Phillips appeared to be using the marketing budget for non-existent consulting services. Amidst collecting evidence, Janet realized that the problem wasn't limited to these three individuals. It seemed the system was either ignoring or even complicit. She decided to try approaching the Human Resources HR department as a regular low-level employee. She called the internal HR hotline, cautiously explaining the disrespectful treatment she and her colleagues suffered from some managers. She didn't mention specific names or corrupt activities, just spoke generally about the unhealthy work environment. HR's reaction deeply disappointed her. The person who took the call listened indifferently, asked a few perfunctory questions, and finally just advised her to try to integrate or talk frankly with your direct manager, something they surely knew was impossible for a janitor dealing with senior executives. There was no support, no hint of any investigation. She realized that to HR, employees like Janet simply didn't matter. They were just small numbers in the system, voiceless and easily overlooked. This confirmed Robert's fear. The problem was deeply embedded in the structure, where the vulnerable received no necessary protection. Jasmine's undercover time was coming to an end. She had gathered a massive amount of evidence, dozens of audio recordings, hundreds of photos, and detailed diary entries documenting the abuse, corruption, and systemic indifference. The weight of the truth bore down on her. It was time for Jasmine to return. Robert Williams convened an emergency board of directors meeting on a Monday morning, an unusual time slot. Board members, including Gerald Hayes, Derek Phillips, and Veronica Wells, were present with curious and slightly annoyed expressions due to the sudden meeting. They sat around the long table in the most luxurious conference room, none of them knowing that they were about to face the most intense storm of their careers. The atmosphere in the conference room was tense. Robert Williams sat at the head of the table, his face more serious than ever. He began his speech slowly, his voice low and heavy with weight. Members of the board, I have convened this meeting to discuss a matter of extreme gravity, directly affecting the integrity and future of Williams Innovations. He paused, glancing around at the people seated before him. Recently, I have observed alarming signs regarding our company culture, and more importantly, concerning opaque activities occurring at some of the highest levels of management. Gerald, Derek, and Veronica exchanged uneasy glances. They seemed bewildered, not understanding what Robert was talking about. They thought this might be some sort of internal audit, but Robert's demeanor made them feel uneasy. At that moment, the conference room door opened. A woman walked in. No longer Janet in a stained uniform and tied-back hair, but Jasmine Williams, in a power suit, walking with confidence and a sharp gaze. Her face was cold, showing no emotion. The entire room was stunned. Gerald, Derek, and Veronica looked at her with disbelief. They recognized Jasmine, but didn't understand why she was here in an emergency board of directors meeting about internal matters. Robert looked at his daughter with pride, but also deep concern. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice echoing in the silent room, "for the past few months, my daughter, my successor, has been on a special mission. A mission that was not easy, fraught with risks, but absolutely essential." He turned to Jasmine. "Jasmine, please present what you have discovered." Jasmine walked to the podium. She placed a laptop on the table and connected it to the large screen. To everyone's astonishment, she began her presentation. Her voice was clear, calm, but each word was like a knife cutting through the tense air. "Esteemed members of the board, my father was right to be concerned about our company culture," Jasmine began. "However, the issue goes beyond mere disrespect. It has escalated to abuse, corruption, and betrayal." She displayed the first photo, the puddle of water on the floor right after Janet had cleaned, accompanied by detailed notes about Gerald Hayes' actions. Gerald's face turned pale. Next was a screenshot of emails from Derek Phillips demanding that a clean office be cleaned repeatedly, along with an audio recording of him talking to another colleague, mocking the foolishness of the little cleaning lady. Derek began to tremble. Then came the evidence regarding Veronica Wells. Jasmine showed a photo of her own cheek, still marked red after the slap, along with an audio recording of Veronica screaming and insulting her. The entire room was shaken. Veronica sat frozen, her face as white as paper. Jasmine continued, evidence piling upon evidence. She displayed photos of suspicious accounting documents, unclear bank transactions linked to shell companies. She played audio recordings of Gerald and Derek discussing how to bend the rules and carve up the spoils. Finally, she presented irrefutable evidence of Veronica Wells leaking confidential company strategy to a main competitor, recovered deleted emails, fully detailed audio recordings of secret agreements. There were no excuses left. Gerald Hayes, Derek Phillips, and Veronica Wells sat there like criminals caught red-handed. Their faces constantly changed color, from shock to anger, then despair. The other board members looked at them with horror and outrage. When Jasmine finished her presentation, silence fell over the room. Only gasps and pounding heartbeats could be heard. Robert Williams looked at the three senior managers with pain but resolute determination. Gerald Hayes, Derek Phillips, Veronica Wells. Robert's voice rang out, cold as ice. Given this undeniable evidence, the board of directors has no other choice. Your actions are unacceptable, both ethically and legally. You have betrayed my trust, the company's trust, and the trust of all the employees working here. He took a deep breath. On behalf of the board of directors, I declare, you are terminated immediately and effective as of now. The company's legal and security departments will handle the subsequent procedures related to corruption and information leakage. You will be escorted from the premises immediately. The three managers seemed to snap out of their daze. Gerald jumped up, his face red, intending to loudly object, but was stopped by Robert's dagger-like gaze. Derek slumped onto the table, trembling. Veronica burst into loud sobs, trying to utter words of pleading but failing. Security guards, who had been waiting outside, entered the conference room. Before the eyes of the entire board of directors, Gerald Hayes, Derek Phillips, and Veronica Wells were escorted out of the room, their appearance miserable and humiliated. The atmosphere after they left was still thick with tension. Jasmine stood there, tired but steadfast. She had completed her mission. The truth had been exposed, but she knew this was only the beginning of a long road to rebuild Williams Innovations. The wound was too deep, and healing it would require more than just removing three rotten individuals. The scandal at the board of directors created a seismic shock within Williams Innovations. News of the immediate dismissal of three senior executives for corruption and misconduct spread like wildfire. The truth was revealed that the CEO's own daughter had secretly worked as a janitor to expose the company's darkest corners, causing shock, astonishment, and deep admiration. Immediately following that historic meeting, Robert Williams, with a voice full of emotion, officially announced his retirement and the handover of the CEO position to his daughter, Jasmine Williams. He expressed absolute confidence in Jasmine's vision and leadership ability, especially after what she had dared to do to protect the company's core values. Jasmine officially stepped into the role of CEO. The spacious, luxurious office that she had previously only visited as the chairman's daughter was now her workspace. But her gaze no longer looked out at the city skyline with pride in power, but rather at the walls, the hallways, the rooms, where she had once worked, sweated, and witnessed injustices under the name Janet. That experience had profoundly changed her. Luxury, power, and profit figures were no longer the sole metrics. The most important thing now was people. Jasmine's first speech as CEO was not about growth strategies or revenue targets. She chose to stand before all the employees, from the remaining senior executives to the security guards, receptionists, and even the familiar cleaning crew. She did not shy away from the truth. She talked about why her father had encouraged her to undertake the secret mission. She recounted what she had seen, heard, and felt while being Janet. The hardship, the invisibility, and especially the lack of respect that those in lower positions faced daily. Her voice was warm, sincere, sometimes catching as she spoke of the difficult moments. I used to look at this company from the top of the tower, Jasmine said, her eyes sweeping across the faces listening. I knew about the metrics, the market, the competition. But I never truly understood the backbone of Williams Innovations, which is all of you. When I became Janet, I learned the most important lesson of my life about leadership. Leadership is not just about making big decisions or setting high goals. Leadership is about seeing value in every person, listening to their voices, and creating an environment where everyone feels safe, respected, and has the opportunity to grow. She announced that deep changes would take place. First and foremost was the reform of the Human Resources Department. This department would no longer be just a service for management, but would become the protector of the rights and the listener to the concerns of all employees. She established an independent, anonymous reporting channel, ensuring that all complaints about misconduct or disrespect were investigated seriously and fairly, regardless of position. Jasmine also focused on improving working conditions for the departments that had been overlooked. The salaries of the janitorial staff, maintenance, and other support employees were reviewed and increased to a more deserving level. Equipment was upgraded and work schedules were adjusted to reduce pressure. She regularly spent time meeting directly with these teams, listening to their difficulties and suggestions with genuine sincerity. A retraining program for all levels of management was implemented, focusing on empathetic, respectful, and effective communication-based leadership skills. Those who could not adapt to the new culture would no longer have a place at Williams Innovations. Jasmine wanted to build a management team that was not only professionally competent, but also ethical and compassionate. These changes didn't happen overnight, but their impact was significant. The atmosphere within the company gradually changed. Employees felt safer expressing their opinions and concerns. They saw that the new CEO was not a distant figure on an ivory tower, but someone who had lived their lives. Jasmine's understanding, her sincerity, and the concrete action she took rebuilt lost trust. Employee turnover rates, especially in lower and middle-level departments, decreased significantly. Employees no longer felt like anonymous cogs, easily replaceable or mistreated. They felt like an important part of the new Williams Innovations, a company that truly valued people. They worked with higher satisfaction and engagement. Productivity improved as a result. Under Jasmine's leadership, Williams Innovations not only maintained its leading position in the tech industry, but also became a model for an ideal workplace. The story of the billionaire CEO disguising herself as a janitor to save the company's soul became an inspiring legend, not only within Williams Innovations, but also spreading throughout the business world. Jasmine Williams, who had once lived under the name Janet Smith, never forgot the lessons from that secret time. The old uniform was kept as a constant reminder of where she had learned the true meaning of leadership, not looking down from above, but looking up from below, with empathy and compassion for every individual who contributed to the shared success. Williams Innovations under her management was not just a successful business company, but also a community where everyone was treated with dignity and respect, a legacy that Robert Williams had always dreamed of and that his daughter had now brought to fruition. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the content, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more updates. Don't forget to share it with your friends too. Let's spread the word together. Thanks for the support.